All right, welcome back to Doctrines 2 as we continue our study of anthropology and the essential nature of man. What is man made of? Soul, spirit, are they the same thing? Let's talk about one more aspect. As in the last video, we talked about trichotomy, dichotomy, monism. Is man made up of three parts, two parts, and one part? The question of dichotomy, which we looked at kind of as maybe that might be the best answer, that I believe that as we look at dichotomy, that might be too simplistic of an answer, that man is simply made up of a material and immaterial part, because the Bible does use so many different words to describe our immaterial part. So essentially, I believe that that human beings exist in two essential aspects, material and immaterial. And we do see that the immaterial part of man does function aside from the material, and we do see that the immaterial part of aspect of a man lives on beyond the death of the body and will be reunited with the body in resurrection. But let's talk about, what I want to talk about is the facets of the immaterial aspect of man. This is posited by Charles Ryrie. Charles Ryrie is a theologian, wrote Basic Theology by Charles Ryrie, and also the Ryrie Study Bible. And what he says is that the immaterial aspect of man is what he says multifaceted. That just like our bodies, in fact, Paul even uses this as an illustration for how the church works, that we are many members that all function as one body. So we have a hand, we have a foot, we have an eye, we have an ear, and all of our aspects, all of the material aspects of a person work together in one body. And so in that same vein, in that same idea, the immaterial aspect of man, the immaterial aspect of man works also in the same multifaceted way. Many members comprising one person, one immaterial aspect of the person. First of all, we looked at the word soul. Man is essentially a soul. Genesis 2:7, that he made him a living soul. And many times the word soul can be used to comprise all of what is immaterial, but sometimes there's aspects of the word soul that indicate certain things, and you can kind of look those up, those various verses up for yourself. Spirit, we see in these verses that the Spirit works in certain ways, and again, also can be used to describe the totality of the immaterial person. The word heart, same way. Another word that is used interchangeably with soul and with spirit. In fact, when we talk about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, all of those aspects are immaterial. Even though the word strength can sometimes indicate our bodies, strength itself, probably even talking more about the strength of will rather than strength of our physical bodies. When we talk about the heart, we can see that in the Bible, the heart is the seat of intellectual life. We think with our heart. We can determine things with our heart. In Deuteronomy 8:5. Heart is a seat of emotional life. We love with our hearts. Our heart is the seat of our volitional life. We choose to do things with our hearts, and our spiritual life as well. It's the heart that believes unto salvation. And so the heart, again, is another aspect that we didn't really talk about in the last video, along with soul and spirit. But again, another essential aspect or essential facet to the immaterial person. Let's talk about a couple of more. What about the conscience? Every human being has a conscience to help determine what is right and what is wrong. Paul says in the book of Acts that it's our conscience that pricks us. It's our conscience that the Holy Spirit uses to bring us to salvation. The mind, what we think with, again, heart, soul, mind, and strength. And again, here's an interesting one because in the Old Testament passages, heart, soul, and strength, and when Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, he's actually quoting the Septuagint, but the idea there is that the Hebrew understanding of the human being, they looked at those three parts, heart, soul, and strength, as being the totality of a human being, whereas when the Greek mind would think about the human being, the mind itself was very, very important to the Greeks. And so in the New Testament, and Jesus himself quoting the Septuagint version of that verse, heart, soul, mind, and strength, we see that Jesus himself is not taking a side as to how many aspects or how many parts the immaterial part of man is, but rather that all of these various components, all of these various things comprise the immaterial person, the immaterial aspect of man. What about our flesh? Now, many times the word flesh talks specifically about our bodies, our physical bodies. But there's many times when the word flesh talks about our immaterial nature. And specifically, many times the word flesh is talking about our sin nature. But there are some times where it's not necessarily sin nature as the NIV always translates it, but rather there's sometimes the word flesh, as in 1 Corinthians 15 and Hebrews 5, where flesh doesn't necessarily mean sinful nature, but actually just who we are, the immaterial part of man. So again, there's some verses to consider for you. What about our will, our desires, my will to do what is right, my will to do what is wrong? Again, another aspect of the human being, another aspect of our immaterial part. In Romans chapter 7, Paul talks about his desire to do what's right, but his inability to do what's right. And so again, there's all of these aspects of the human immaterial part of what makes us human. And again, my take on this, what is the essential nature of man? While I do believe that man was meant to be one human being, our bodies and souls are interwoven with one another. Our immaterial and material parts are interwoven, so that we are meant to be in bodies, not only in this life, but in the life to come. In our resurrected bodies, we will have physical human form, and we will have a body. So we're meant to have bodies as one human being. So I do believe monism does have some things to commend it. Dichotomy. I do believe that we're in two essential parts, both body and soul. That our body and spirit, our body, material and immaterial aspect of man, and obviously at death, the immaterial part continues living while the physical part dies and ceases to function and begins to rot and decompose. And we're not reunited until resurrection. As far as trichotomy goes, I don't know that I can go with the traditional trichotomist view, having really anything to commend it, because it does emphasize way too much the difference between soul and spirit that I don't see scripturally. We've looked at some of those passages. Wayne Grudem points out a lot more that you can look up as well. But when we talk about personhood, and we've talked about this, I talk about this a lot in Doctrines 1, and we talk about this in Angelology in Doctrines 3, but that human beings are persons, and in the Greek mind, persons had three aspects of personality, or three aspects of personhood: mind, intellect, and emotion, or heart, hands, and mind, and so, or head, heart, and hands. And so many times we talk about the intellectual, the affective, or the emotional, and the will, or the choices, or the the obedience aspect. So when we teach, many times we talk about talking about trying to communicate to the head, the heart, and the hands, or the intellect, the emotion, and the will, as the basic three-part nature of personhood. But don't get that confused. Those three aspects with trichotomy, which would try to divide. That's more of a medieval theology that would try to divide body, soul, and spirit, rather than intellect, emotion, and will. All right, that's all we have for this video. We'll continue on. We've got one more topic to discuss in the next video.